Welcome to GeeK KetchUp. I'm Kyle Eckert alongside Chris Heck. We're two lifelong friends with a passion for all things geek. Whether it's gaming, movies, television, wrestling, comics, whatever. If it's nerdy, there's a good chance we're into it. You are listening to Chapter 14 of Season 1. Today, we're sitting down with Emily Bateman from the podcast Game of Groans. We'll catch up with Emily, hear all about her favorite shows, video games, and of course, talk about her Game of Thrones podcast. Before we get started here, Chris and I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for listening to this chapter, and thank you to everyone that's been listening. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and we appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us. Hopefully everyone is staying safe and healthy. Also, we hope that in this short time you're hanging out with us, it's a nice break from the high stress we're all experiencing. Usually this is the part where I ask you to spread the word about GeeK KetchUp on social media and to stay saucy. Instead, I'll ask that you spread the word on using common sense, smart social distancing, and to quote Braun Strowman, remember to wash those hands.
So Kyle and I are excited to be here today with a friend of GeeK KetchUp and fellow podcaster, Emily Bateman. Today, we're going to be chatting about a bunch of great topics from the world of geekery, but before we do, how are you this morning, Emily?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah, doing well, doing well.
Hanging out inside just like always for the last few weeks.
Yep. Inside kids, all of us.
Yeah. We get to look out the window and see the sun, but can't feel it.
You know, it's been definitely a weird time, but it's also a blessing in its own way because it gives us geeks a ton of time to geek out on all the things that we like to do. And so that was one thing we're going to spend some time here today talking about is what Emily's been geeking out on lately. Probably a couple things that Kyle and I have been doing as well, but since Emily is our guest, we want to focus in on that. So what have you been geeking out on lately, Emily?
Okay, so the biggest stuff, and I'm sure nobody is unfamiliar with this at this point, Animal Crossing, duh. And I recently got Link's Awakening for the Switch too, which is a little older, but I was excited about it because I don't normally do a lot of like one player on your own adventure things. So, and it reminded me of Wind Waker, which I did like on the GameCube. And he's so tiny and cute. So it was pretty fun. So those are the two big ones, especially as far as like video games, what I'm really focused on almost every day.
Sure. Well, they both have a similar look now with the update of Link's Awakening. I noticed that the graphics are very similar to what they did in the new Animal Crossing. But admittedly, Kyle and I are actually the weirdos in the group and maybe the weirdos in the world.
True.
But, you know, I saw that Animal Crossing, the new one, has sold over 11 million units. But Kyle and I were not a part of that. We have never played Animal Crossing. So we wanted to spend some time and kind of figure out what exactly is Animal Crossing.
It's a ridiculous game. And so I started when it came out for the GameCube, and that was the first one. And so I grew up, I have a younger brother and an older sister. So all the consoles were shared. And so we had a lot of like multiplayer, Super Smash, Mario Kart, there's Mario Tennis. I'm sorry. Oh, like any Pokemon, Mario Party. Yes, thank you. And Soul Calibur.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, nice.
So this was like a weird game that came out. Like, I don't even know why my brother wanted it, but he did, and so we got it. And turns out it was one of the ones that needed like that really big, like 128 megabyte memory cards. Like you needed to put your whole little village on a card. And since the GameCube didn't save anything, you had to have the memory cards anyway for like save data.
The days of memory cards.
Oh my gosh, I know. We had a label maker, so we had each like child's initials on them, so you didn't get them confused with like whose it was and everything.
Because they all look the same.
Yes, they're all like black or gray or something. So either you put a sticker on it or you don't know.
Yep.
So it was like this whole weird thing where you needed the card and you needed this. And so like you come into a city and all the villagers are animals. And you come into this place and there's this raccoon named Tom Nook. And he's like, hey, you want to live here? Here's a house. You owe me lots of money now. Now go cut down trees, pick fruit, like do all this.
Like a slumlord? Tom Nook Slumlord? An
A
Animal
raccoon.
Crossing?
Yeah, a raccoon
He's a
slumdog.
raccoon. He's just like he monopolizes whatever city you're in. He runs the mortgages basically. He owns the one shop in town where you can buy and sell things. Like he runs the entire island
The
and
drug dealer in a Michael Bay movie.
basically yes without real words cuz when they talk it's like this weird like jarble kind of like sim whatever language,
Okay.
but they all have different and then like obviously you see the text, but it's like this weird like Animal Crossing language that they all say. And so you're basically just paying off your house and you're decorating your house. And then once you pay it off, he's like, don't you want to have a bigger house or an expansion or a different color roof? And you're like, yeah, I do. So then you like owe him even more money and then you pay that off. And it's like this whole, it's so weird that like, I don't know. It's just like, it's calming because that's all you're doing. So in this new one, you're on like an island and it's really cool because like now you can and I didn't like play the ones in between, so I think some stuff happened in between, but you can like
Okay.
craft furniture and you can go to other islands and invite people to live in your island. And so a big thing is like you can dislike some of the villagers because that's possible because some of them are trash and there's like 400 of them that you can get and you can only have 10 people live on your island.
Okay.
So you can either like try and force them to go away by like hitting them with a net and like sending them letters and stuff and then they leave or you just wait for them to like leave onto their own volition or something. It's very odd.
So it sounds like some zany chaos for one.
It's so weird and like so many people are spending so much either real money or fake money to like get the characters that they want or build the place that they want. I mean, the inflation in this game is ridiculous because I got the last expansion, which is a basement. It was like 1.2 million bells, which is the money currency. So it's like $1.2 million for a basement in a house. And I was like, you
Jeez.
guys,
Yeah.
because you start off with a tent because you're on an island and you get a house. And then I think you expand the house and then you get 1, 2, 3 rooms downstairs, then you get an upstairs, then you get a basement. And so
Yeah.
it's
Then you
like,
made it.
yes, then I've made it. Yeah, once I pay this one off, I've expanded my house as big as I can. Because what happened is that I got it the first day it came out because it released March 20th. And so I was supposed to be gone on vacation because I was going to where was it? The Boston Ace Comic Con, and I was going to meet Chris Evans. I had paid for my photo and everything.
Oh
And
no.
yep, Captain America. So upset. And so that was canceled, but I had 5 days off anyway. And I was like, screw that. I'm not going to work. I'm going to pre-order this so that it appears on my Nintendo Switch the day it comes out. And I'm going to play it for 5 days. And that's what I did. And I literally have not stopped playing it every day, at least for like an hour or so since.
Wow.
Because it's just something you can do. You like pick fruit, you can hit rocks and you get stuff, or sometimes you get money out of the rocks for whatever reason.
Okay.
You can plant flowers is a big thing. You have to have a certain rating for your island and you have to like put more scenery, and there's different types of flowers. And
So it's kind of like a Second Life kind of situation.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
But the player is the only human on the
Mhm.
island. So
Yep.
that's the whole animal aspect, is that
Yes.
every other person is animals. Okay.
Yeah, the way that they've set it up is that if more than one person is playing on the Switch, you're on the same island. So it's one island per Switch, and that was the same with the GameCube, one island per memory card.
Okay.
We learned that the hard way when me and my sibling played, we ended up on the same island. We're like, wait a second, because you don't get to do as much stuff. Like if one person plays first, they take all the fruit, they take all the stuff. The second person comes in and you're like, there's nothing to do. It doesn't reset. And like the fruit grows back in like 3 days. So it's not like, but that was the whole, I feel like I'm jumping everywhere. In the GameCube, that was when you could do the time jumping and it didn't matter because everything was set up already in the game, every event, every animal that you could catch or any fish or anything like that.
No internet, so it wasn't connected.
Right. And
Yeah.
so we learned that and it was like, okay, we're going to go through seasons. We're going to go through like all my fruit was planted on this day and we're going to jump 3 days ahead and get all the fruit. And so that was fine. Now it's very controversial because it's connected to the internet and they're pushing updates. And so if you jump ahead, you have to go back in time to get the update because it comes at a specific day.
Oh.
And I don't really know how that's affecting people because you used to get penalized if you forgot where you were and you jumped back. There would be this little, I think he was a mole, and he would like get mad at you for like time jumping, and like
Yeah.
there'd be weeds everywhere and your villagers would have left and everything. It was like punishment. And I don't know if he like took money from you or something. But now I said I wasn't going to do that. And it's a slow start because you can only do so much in the first like 5 days. But after that, it's fine. You can go anywhere, you can do anything. And so it didn't
Sure.
really matter.
It sounds like the core of the game, because you mentioned like picking fruits and harvesting things. Is it a lot of like farming?
Not as much actually, because you also catch all the bugs and you catch all the fish. And so there's a museum that you have to catch one of each thing and you give it to the guy in the museum and then he puts them on display. And then once you catch all of them, you get like something special, I think,
Okay.
because there's all these tools you can have. There's like a shovel, net, fishing pole, that kind of thing. And so once you catch all of the bugs, you get a golden fishing net. And then once you I think, and then there's fossils you can dig up, and so it's like there's a T-Rex fossil that you can have in your museum and everything. So it's a lot,
Lots of
yeah, it's a lot of
exploring.
it's a lot of fishing, catching bugs, digging up things. So far, no like real gardening, but since I wouldn't put it past them at this point just because it's so expansive already, and they can add more whenever they want,
Yeah.
and they're releasing it kind of in a good order where like people have, I think the first update was like the whole Easter thing, and that was maybe like for 2 weeks after it came out, so that got people time. And then there was something for like, oh, what is Earth Day? They had something for Earth Day. That was an expansion that released. And so
That's
like,
pretty cool that they're doing
mhm.
consistent kind of live updates like that to keep people engaged. I guess for a game like that where it really is kind of like we were saying, like that Second Life, almost sounds like The Sims or a
Yes.
little bit of Stardew. Like I know Kyle's into Stardew. Probably
Yeah.
want to talk about that.
It sounds exactly like Stardew. It's kind of wild.
Okay.
But that is pretty cool to just to constantly give you new stuff to do. So it sounds also like the new one is significantly bigger than some of the older ones were.
Yes, and I only have the comparison of the OG to the new. They had one on your phone that was kind of fun, but that got kind of they kept doing events like every other week, and so it got really overwhelming, so I just kind of gave up. But yeah, it's a lot different as far as like what you can do, especially like house-wise, and then there's more animals and there's more new characters and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's huge for me going from the one on the GameCube to this one. It's just massive and
I bet.
it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's a big generation gap between the two. You know, you had the Wii U in there,
Yeah.
multiple handhelds, so there was a lot of progression from the Nintendo side. Is it actually a multiplayer game, or are you kind of just always doing your own thing and then other people are around like open world style?
Right. On the Switch, only one person can play at a time, because you only get one island, and so I think you can have, like, multiple players, but only one at a time. But what you've done now, in this one, you can visit other people's islands, and so
Ah,
that's what a lot of people are doing, is, like, they're trading. And I don't know if you've my Facebook is like blown up in like different groups that I'm in, and everybody are like, I'm trading this for like 1,000 bells, and I need this and I need this, and like, and the whole turnip stock market. Have you guys heard of that?
I did see that. I saw a headline and there was some issue with it or something, and I was like, "What?" Like it just everything I've seen in the headlines. I don't know about you, Kyle, but everything I've seen in the headlines when it comes to Animal Crossing New Horizons, especially, is like that's my overall. I'm like, what?
What?
Yeah. Like what? Yeah, I've seen nothing but memes, and they're all about turnips, and I'm like, what is going on in this game? Like turnips
Okay,
are
so I'll tell
gold.
you, like, basically, so there's this little pig that comes every Sunday morning from 5 to 12, and she sells turnips. And so the two there are two more raccoons now that are the nephews of Tom Nook, who is the monopoly god of
The
Animal Crossing.
Godfather. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
basically. So they're his little nephews, and so they run the store now. And so every day but Sunday, they will buy turnips, but the price that they're buying turnips for changes every, I think, in morning and afternoon of every day. and it's random, and so hopefully you can sell them for more than you're buying them. And so it's basically, and then people are like trying to find like the actual stock market, they're trying to guess when it's going to go up and what day and predict like
Yeah.
when it's going to rise and fall. And people are advertising on Twitter that like this is what their price is and come to my island. I saw something on Twitter that Elijah Wood visited this random girl's island because she had a good price on turnips, and then she like screenshot it. She was like, he was so nice. And so like people are crazy about it. I keep missing the woman selling the turnips, so I've done it once. It's fine. I made a little bit of money the first time I did it because it was like the first Sunday, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was up that early. And then the other, every other Sunday I've played after 12, so I miss it. But yeah, that's a huge thing, and people are like really getting into it because you can buy them for like 63 dollars. And then I've seen people post prices of like 500 that they're buying them for. So it's
Price
wild.
gouging turnips?
Yeah.
I know. It's so
Jeez.
crazy. And the other thing is they go bad after a week. So you can't hoard them. You have to sell them within the week.
I was going to ask that with everything
Mhm.
being food-based, like, is there a turnover? So you get a week to sell them, so...
Just for the turnips. Any other fruit you can store like from all the trees, because there's pears, oranges, coconuts, peaches. Let's see. Yeah, it was pears, oranges, coconuts, apples, cherries, I think. So yeah, all those ones are fine. And when you get to your island, there's only one native fruit and one native flower. And so you can buy different flowers from the store, but also you can visit other islands and you can get them from other people. So I had to visit other people's islands to get all of the fruit. So I started out with peaches, and I was like, hey, do you have this? I will trade you this. And so I've done a little bit of visiting.
It's funny. It all is kind of adding up to me as like a younger, like a child's version, and I don't say that offensively because we all play stuff. It's Nintendo, right? That's how it is.
Right.
But it's almost like a younger person's version of like Tropico or SimCity or The Sims. It's kind of like a lot of the same type concepts as those management style games, but in a simpler package and on a level that if I had a 8-year-old
Yes.
son or something that he would be really into, or he could understand.
Yes, it's very colorful.
Yeah. Is the game, like, with things going bad, is there, like, an urgency to the game to go and buy and sell? Or is it more... 'Cause there's so many things that have, in my mind, I've compared it to Stardew Valley. And when I started to play Stardew Valley, that game is very calming. Like, you do nothing with urgency. So I didn't know if Animal Crossing was the same vibe.
Yes, it's very chill. Nothing has to happen quickly. You can go at your own pace, which is kind of nice. Like I think some people are, trying to get things paid off really quickly, and like we'll go to a lot of places, play for like 5 hours, because it's really just like a lot of like farming. Like the more fish you catch, then you go and sell them. Then you can go catch more fish. So you could do a lot in a day if you wanted to. But I mean, it's really chill. It's just, some things are put on hold if they have to like build the store, then you have to wait a day. But no, there's no like, you need to get this now. You need to be at this point at this level or whatever. No. And the music's really chill. Like I just hear it in my head, and then the people talking not real English. So then that's fine. And like, it's very, yeah, I like it because it was so chill, especially when it came out. And I was just like, I need something that's calming. And because I think the last game I had played on the Switch was Pokemon Shield.
Okay.
And so that, can be calming, but you're fighting things. So it's a
Right.
little more like I have to get things done and I have to catch things,
Yeah.
whatever. So this was like, okay, I can like do this, for at least an hour a day, and it'll be my like, I'm doing something fun. I can listen to a podcast if I want. It's all good. So
It's like video game yoga, it sounds like,
yeah,
Get the mind right, reset,
yeah,
pick some
pretty much.
turnips.
Yeah, the days I have to work, I come home and just play that for an hour, and then I'm good.
Yeah. And there's no penalty for waiting. Like if I log in and I do one thing on an hour and I don't get much done, there's no penalty to not playing or not picking up. Like obviously the turnips are gonna go bad, but it's not the end of the world. Like there's
No,
there's no dying, I guess is what I'm getting to.
no. I think if you like maybe dropped it for a year and then came back and picked it up, like there'd be a ton of weeds and all your villagers would be gone. But you can still start over. You can pull all the weeds again. and you can invite people back to your island. Like, it's not.
So do you see in the communities like different players that some folks will end up specializing in certain parts of the game? Like I'm just like the world's greatest Animal Crossing fishmonger, or is it really conducive like that you kind of do need to do a little bit of everything to move forward in your own game? Because some games that kind of have that open world, you'll find that some people will just go and they're like, I'm going to do nothing but craft, and then I'm going to sell those things I craft on the market and say like an MMO. Is that really something that happens in Animal Crossing, or do people still have to generally give everything attention in order to move their game forward?
Yeah, I think if you want to move your stuff forward, you need to dabble in all of them. If I'm being honest, I'm not the best fisher because it's like a little like you have to time it because it'll like vibrate and then after it vibrates more, you have to press A and you're like, "Oh no, that I missed it." So that's my the thing that I'm the least good at is fishing. But I mean everything else is pretty easy. You dig a rock or you dig a hole, you grab fruit and catching bugs I'm okay at. But there's tarantulas and scorpions that can bite you, and then
Ooh.
it sends you back to your house.
Uh-oh.
And then and then you can get stung by wasps, and then you have like a your eye swollen, and then if you get stung again, and then you it's this whole thing.
Are there
So
murder hornets in Animal Crossing?
oh no, in a way, yes, because if you get stung and then you get stung for a second time and you haven't like taken medicine, you get sent back to your house. So
Oh.
now I always have because if you shake trees, like a hornet's nest will come out. But you can also get other things. Like sometimes furniture comes out of trees for whatever reason. And then sometimes money comes out and sometimes twigs come out, which you can craft with the twigs. So I would get stung like 5 times a day. And I was like, I should stop doing this. So I was like, whoops.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh, which your original question was, I think you have to do a little bit of everything just to like keep going. But as far as people interacting with each other, there's been a lot of as far as the recipes that you have to craft things, it's random how you get them and which ones you get.
Oh, okay.
So like other villagers will give them to you. Sometimes you'll find them. Sometimes they'll be available at the store. But people really want to decorate their houses a specific way. And so if they're and there's a whole catalog on whatever Animal Crossing website. So everyone knows what you can get. And so they're looking for them and then they'll like trade either money or supplies or like crafting supplies to the person that has the recipe or something. So it's a lot of like just trying to get what they want. And then the people. So if someone's moving out, I think if you visit their island, you can talk to them, invite them to yours. And so a lot of people have like goal villagers or like, the top whatever that they want to have. And so they'll like try and find them on another island or something, or they'll go to other people's and stuff like that.
It's a lot more complex than I ever thought it'd be.
Yeah.
Originally, I mean, in the first one, like people would just villagers would just show up. Like you couldn't pick them, you couldn't find them, and I think you couldn't even ask them to move in. They just were like, "I'm gonna live here now," and you're like, "Okay, random frog, that's nice. Like, good to meet you." But now it's you'll go to like a random deserted island and you'll see like, oh, there's a lion, and then you'll talk to them, and if you have a spot open in your house or your island, that's what it is, in your island, you can say, do you want to move? And then they'll say, yeah, great idea. But if you don't invite them, they won't come. So
Yeah.
it's a whole thing.
So we've seen like you've talked about customizing your house. Like you bought a basement and
I did.
hopefully it was a finished basement. I mean, are you seeing a lot of like variety in the custom builds or like how's that? Like what is the customizing kind of vibe there? Like how does that work?
Well, there's a lot of in the store that they have, the two little raccoons, they have different furniture every day. And so there's also an online catalog of stuff you can buy. And so it's really just luck of the draw, or if you find something, and now you can craft furniture. So that's a lot of it. And you can customize the colors and that kind of thing. So and then some recipes rely on you having another one already. So like there's this really flimsy shovel, but if you want a nicer shovel, you have to build the flimsy one and then you use iron and then you make the nice shovel. So
Right.
they build onto each other. So you can go a ton of different ways, and there's so much stuff you can buy and That's I think what a lot of people are doing trading wise. They go to other people's islands, buy the other furniture that they like. I haven't really done a lot of that. It's just I make what I want. But there's like really crazy things you can do, like different aesthetics. Like there's a very gothic aesthetic. There's very like, preppy or modern or, and there's a lot of like different floorings and like wallpaper things that you can make every room look different and stuff. So
That makes sense. One thing, kind of just to build on what Kyle just asked, that had me a little confused about the game was that I keep seeing articles or pictures or headlines, and it's like Animal Crossing players are now doing this crazy thing, or they've built this crazy thing. Like the one I saw this morning was like Animal Crossing players are really into art, and it was like a picture of Michelangelo or the statue of David is what I think what it was,
mhm.
something along those lines. And so I was kind of wondering, like, is there that freedom to build almost like a Minecraft kind of style where you can build whatever you can dream of? Or is it just them manipulating what's in game to essentially make it look like other things?
Well, the art is a specific thing. So that's part of the most recent release. Is
Okay.
there's this fox called Red, and he shows up on your island with a boat, and he sells art off his boat. But the thing is, with him, some of his paintings are fakes. So you have to you have
Of
to look
course they are.
Yeah.
of course. So you have to like you can like look at them and then if you because they're all like normal like the Mona Lisa and so they're all like actual works of art. And so if you look at them carefully and you compare it to the real one, you can tell if it's fake or not. I have this whole I have a link saved that has like they've posted every fake and the real looking one and sometimes there aren't any fakes so you're good to buy that one. So I've been cheating and using that. But no, they actually sell, the Statue of David, so that's a thing you can
Okay.
buy. But as far as, like, decorating inside, people are using a lot of things like because you can't, like, raise a level in whatever floor you're at, but people are using I don't know the right word, but, like, kind of an illusion to show, like, a second floor or, like, a raised level or something, so people are just getting very creative, like, visually, and so it'll look like, "Oh, there's a step up in this room, but there are stairs," when they're not. Which is
Okay.
crazy. I even saw the design guy from Queer Eye, I think his name is Bobby. He was asking people to send them like the Animal Crossing and ask for like his opinion on like what they would do. It's really then he like would respond and say like, "Oh, this looks great," or maybe you should add this or do this. I was like, this is wild.
Everybody's into it. I mean, I saw you mentioned Elijah Wood. I had
Yep.
seen that a few weeks back. I saw one just from this week that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, popped into some person's
What?
game. She's playing, you know? So it's just, I mean, people from everyday folks to celebrities and everything in between are all over this game.
Mhm. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Kyle and I are clearly just not hip to it.
Yeah, just totally missed the boat. Although I'll say everything you've said so far, like down to the farming, the upgrading your equipment, the mining of iron, chopping down trees and getting stung by bees, bitten by tarantulas, all of that exists in Stardew Valley.
What is Stardew
Ooh.
Valley? You gotta tell me.
So Stardew Valley is honestly, it sounds like the exact same game as Animal Crossing to some extent. The only difference is visually, it looks more like the original Pokemon.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's the exact same thing. You show up, you're a guy who returns to his childhood town. You get a house, and you get a house. There's this corporation that's starting to take over the area, but you want to keep it a simple hometown area. So you start farming. You build out a farm, and it starts with corn and simple little things, and then you grow your farm bigger and bigger. And there's people in the town that you can go and meet and develop relationships. You can go to the store. You can go to the museum. And once per season, you grow a specific type of fruit or vegetable, and then you donate it to the museum, and they put it on display.
What?
And I was like, so you're telling me all these things about Animal Crossing, and I'm like, did the dude that like built Stardew Valley just copy Animal Crossing? Although he said he had a lot of inspiration from Harvest Moon.
I've never played that, but it sounds very up my alley.
Yeah, and so I think they're all like these farming simulators where you live your everyday life and you do little things. The interesting thing about Stardew Valley is you can develop relationships with people in town and eventually pick to marry one.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Is that Nintendo or what console is that on?
I have it on Switch, but I know that it's a mobile game as well. We have our buddy Blair, he plays it on mobile, but I picked it up on Switch. Actually, I was listening to a podcast, they mentioned it, that it was another game that's very relaxing. There's no urgency, there's no penalty. You can die, but the worst thing that can happen is, like, you go to a dungeon, and if you die, it just returns you to home, and you might lose some of your materials.
Oh, okay.
But that's the worst thing can happen, but if you just progress day by day, like, there's no big deal if you do minimal tasks that day before progressing to the night, like, that's okay. If you there's events in town, like, they have an Easter, and there's a calendar of events, so, like, once per month, there's, like, a special thing that happens in town, and you can get some sort of reward from that, but so, all in all, it sounds exactly like Animal Crossing.
Is it also real time, or can you speed up days?
No, you speed up days. It's not real time, like, there's in-game time. It's played much faster.
Okay.
Well, and it sounded like Stardew is much more of a single player experience, whereas the new Animal Crossings has got a little bit more of a multiplayer community experience. Is that fair?
At its core, but they just released right after I bought Stardew Valley in January, they had just released a multiplayer aspect where you can basically live on the same island
Oh,
as
nice.
somebody else. But I haven't experienced that. And then in the beginning, you pick different types of islands that all have different types of yields. So if, like, you get really into being a corn farmer, um, yeah, you can do that. The big difference would be because you can progress time and there's months and there's seasons,
Mhm.
that only certain crops grow in certain seasons. So, like, if you're looking, it takes 4 days to grow a raspberry bush and to get raspberries out of that. But raspberries only grow in the spring and the summer.
Mhm.
So if you've got 3 days left of summer, that raspberry bush isn't gonna give you anything, so you almost need to store the seeds, put them in a box, and then wait for spring to roll back around.
Oh, wow.
It's so realistic.
Yeah,
That sounds fun, though.
yeah,
I
but
might get that.
and it's all presented like the original Pokemon, like that top down, like, little cartoony
Oh.
looking person. You customize how they look. Like, my dude has a little hair flick and a flannel shirt.
So yeah, and if this was 20 years ago and we were having this conversation, this is where the cartridge swap would happen. And then Kyle would be playing Animal Crossing and Emily would be going playing Stardew for a while, you know?
Yeah.
For sure, I'll mail it to you, yeah. Yeah, the one thing, I do like is that the customizing feature of your character, because I forgot to say this in the original GameCube one, you were, like, riding on a train, like, the beginning you know how, like, Pokemon starts and they're just, like, talking to you and they ask for your name? So it was that, and you answered, like, a few questions to this, like, cat that was also moving to your city, and you'd be like, "Oh, are you happy?" or whatever, and it was like I think one of them was like, "Are you cool or pretty?" It was very, like, kinda sexist at the time, and so it was like guy or girl. But you came off the train and you just looked like how you looked like. And so some of them looked terrible, like had really scary eyes or like a weird face, and you're like, "No, turn off the game." So then you like start over and like answer the questions differently and be like, "Do I look cute this time? Do I like my character?" But now you can change anything about it. So it's no longer luck of the draw. It's like you appear and you're like, "Okay, I can change everything about my person."
That's pretty cool. Like
So
at
that's
any
nice
time.
now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
pretty
green
cool.
hair right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I always like doing that when you get custom characters. There's like some aspects that are similar to me in real life, right? But then there's always just these wonky things because you can do anything you want. So yeah, like my big thing. This is gonna sound weird because you bring up hair. Like I always go like dark purple on my people. I don't know. I'm a big fan of purple, so I'll go like black and purple, like beards and eyes
Yeah.
and hair and stuff, just to be as wonky as possible. But
Yeah.
that's the glory of video games, right?
I know. It lets you be whoever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you look however you need to look, yeah.
Yes.
So earlier when we got started, and thank you by the way for now. I feel so much more informed on
Oh,
Animal
good.
Crossing. So
Yeah. I'm tempted to get it, like, knowing
You
how much I like
should.
Stardew Valley. I was
You should
like,
do
She's selling it so hard, and I'm gonna."
it. I can give you everything. You can visit me and I can give you all the fruit so you can be like
there you
from the
go.
start.
Yeah, just boom, nailed it. That's what
Yes.
I need to do, wait a year so everyone has these really established islands, and then just cherry pick.
Then you can
Like,
speed
"Hey
level.
guys, what's up?"
Yeah.
"I'm new, send me your codes."
Yes.
That's the way to do it. Elijah Wood, send me your coat.
Oh my god.
Frodo, help us.
Frodo. Yeah.
So at the beginning, you had also mentioned that you've been playing Link's Awakening.
Yes.
And that was a fantastic, remaster. It's pretty much a remake at this point with how they overhauled everything with it. So tell us about what your thoughts were on Link's Awakening.
So I guess this is another throwback story. My relationship with Zelda, again, since it was a one-player game, only one child could play it at a time. And so we started off with Ocarina of Time, of course, but it wasn't really my bag. Like, I watched my brother and sister finish it. Like, I would, sit behind them and be like, do this. This is the puzzle, like help them figure it out. But I never played it because it felt so stressful to me. I don't know why, because it's a child's game. But I guess I was an anxious child or something. But I just like playing with them more. And so I didn't really do that. So I think the first Zelda game I actually played was Wind Waker because the animation, it was so different and a lot of people didn't like it. But
Yeah.
that grabbed me for whatever reason. I was like, this looks fun and this looks chill and maybe it looks less serious so I don't have to feel as much like pressure to do well. Because my brother and sister are very good at video games. I'd probably say I'm the worst. My only claim to fame is Soul Calibur 2. I was very good at.
Kick that
But
ass.
yes, I was very good. So I played a little bit of that and then got a Wii and like just kind of dropped off again. I think there were some Game Boy Color games for Zelda and it was like something of Seasons and Time or something. They were like,
There was a few of
I
them.
don't remember what they were
Yeah.
called. Yeah, and so those were fun because they less pressure. It was just me and a little screen, and the animation was different, which I still liked. And so this is Link's Awakening just reminds me of all of that, and it's just very chill. He's very tiny. You're just like running around, and even if you die, it's not like a and then you're like, oh,
It's not
just
gory.
like no, and it's not like a serious story. You're like you washed up on an island. I mean, you guys know this. You wash up on an island and you have to find all these instruments that are
Yep.
in dungeons to awaken what I assume is a bird in a giant egg. I'm only halfway through. I think I have 4 instruments, so I'm only halfway through.
Awesome. Well, you're ahead of me. I did pick it up because I was super pumped about it,
Yeah.
and then got distracted with a few other games. So I think I'm just through the first 2 or 3 dungeons, and it's kind of in the back of my mind, like I need to circle back, but I haven't yet. So probably when travel resumes in the future at some point, like that's when I'll end up hitting it. I'll be in the airport somewhere, and I'll be crushing through it. So I was going to ask you if you had played the original because I really liked what they had done between, if you think about back when the old school graphics, the Game Boy only had the D-pad and just A and B buttons. And so
Right.
you were a lot more limited in what you could do and
Mhm.
how well Link would, react when you were in combat and things like that. Yeah. Whereas the remastered one on the Switch, obviously the Joy-Cons have more buttons. There's a little bit more fluidity to what you're doing. And then the new engine, the new graphics, it plays smoother. It's more fluid. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts there, but I know for me that made a big difference in playing the original versus the new one.
Now, is their original Link's Awakening? You said this is remastered, so is this an older game that they've redone?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
didn't know
completely.
that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. It was originally on Game Boy.
Oh, see, I started with Game Boy Color, so I didn't even
Okay.
that was way
Yeah.
far off from me, so no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a beloved title from back then, and kind of sat dormant for a long time, and then they did this.
Well, I love this one, and like you said, even on the Game Boy Color, you're very limited as to like what items you can equip and how you can move and jump and everything. I was actually concerned. This is going to sound dumb. I was worried about getting it. My husband got it for me for our anniversary because I've been talking about it but didn't commit yet.
Yeah.
He was like, "Just play it," and it's been kind of frustrating sometimes. Which I have not gotten frustrated with a video game in like probably 10 years because I don't play things like this. And he's never watched me play anything frustrating. So he's like, "Oh, you're like getting mad at something." And I was like, "Yes, because I want to win this thing."
There's usually some challenge to all Zelda games. They're
Right.
Yeah.
The
they're
puzzles.
puzzle
Yeah.
platformers, right? So there's always some of that. I definitely know exactly what you're talking about because
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah. But I really like it. I think I can move pretty well, even though he still moves in like the little square. It's not like
Hmm.
totally fluid like, like Animal Crossing or the new Pokemon or anything. But I like it. And been impressed with how well I've actually done because I really didn't think I would make it that far, but I was like, "Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm halfway through. I got this."
Oh, that's awesome.
So, comparing Link's Awakening to Animal Crossing, which like genre style, or is there a specific genre out there, a video game, maybe neither one of these that you prefer to play, maybe even a Soul Calibur, a fighting game? Like, what's your main video gaming genre, I guess?
Oh, my go-to for anything would be Pokemon. I don't know. I mean, it's turn-based fighting, so I'm not really sure what that would be considered as like a
It's kind of like a JRPG
Yeah,
style.
JRPG.
okay, yeah, that's my thing. It's pretty like I will play any Pokemon game that will ever come out. The reason I got a Switch was for Let's Go Eevee. I was like, oh, they're making a Pokemon game for the Switch. I have to buy one now. Like, that's my. But yeah, usually that's the most stressful I will go is like a Pokemon battle. It's usually very chill, very cartoony, bright colors kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I learned a long time ago that I was not good with first person shooters. The dual analog just screws up with me all the time. That's why I like Nintendo where it's just one.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Can't do it. I tried with Halo 2 and it just did not get better. So
No argument out of me. Yeah. I'm not a first person shooter person at all.
husband, yeah.
Despite all our efforts over the years to get Kyle into, certain ones here and there,
Mm-mm.
it's never been his jam.
The Destiny effort was
We
full on.
tried. We
You
tried
tried
so hard.
so hard to get me to play Destiny, and it just wasn't my thing.
Yeah, Nintendo's my thing. Like that if I had to pick forever, it would be Nintendo. Even though they screw with you every new console and it's a different controller and a
Yep.
different thing and nothing's backwards compatible and they're horrible, I still want them all. And they've just hooked me. So, yeah, usually chill, colorful games. I think Link's Awakening is a little bit of a stretch only because it's like there's a little bit more pressure, like people are coming to attack you and that kind of thing. Like, there are things coming to fight you, but it's still very laid back and you can wander around and I've gotten a little more confident in it. So it's better, but that's a bit for me, honestly.
Yeah.
I really am glad to see Nintendo doing as much as they have with putting, the back catalog of games on the Switch because it's just so many of those 8-bit, 16-bit, the NES, SNES games from the past are so perfect for the Switch platform. And on top of that, I'm really happy to see that they're doing some of these remasters because Nintendo, in some ways, for a long time has kind of been like, we put this game out, that's what it is, and then we'll give you new versions, but or they'll resell you the original version. But I think because there was so much love there, right, that a lot of people always wanted them in that classic version. Whereas now they've announced, they're doing stuff like what we got with Link's Awakening. They talked about since this year is one of the big Mario anniversaries that
I
they're going to
know.
bring like the whole Mario catalog to the Switch, and there's been some questions on whether or not some of those are going to essentially be remastered in a little bit of a fashion. So, it should be pretty cool if we can keep getting these types of things because there's so many good titles from back in the day in the Nintendo catalog, and I think that there's a whole new generation to expose them to.
Yeah, I mean they've done it right. Like I said, the reason I bought the Switch because I waited because I the last thing I had was a Wii and I didn't play it. So I hadn't played video games in probably like 5 years.
Oh wow.
So they were like, I know. Well, I got married and then like just whatever. It did
Yeah,
like
life,
had to
Yeah, life,
yeah.
leave it behind for a bit.
and
Why not?
we had the Xbox and I was like, I'm not playing that. I don't want that. So I was like, okay, we're one console. I'm trying to save money, but they're like, yeah, it's Let's Go Eevee, which is basically it's the first red and blue Pokemon, but you have an Eevee or a Pikachu that like rides on your head. That's the only difference.
Oh, nice.
Like it's the same. So they remastered it and they hooked me and they got my whatever couple $100 for the game and the system. And I was like, okay, you've won me over. My 10-year-old self is very excited to replay the exact same game, but a little different. And now my Eevee can wear a bow tie or something. Like, it's just stupid stuff. But
Oh, it's nostalgia. That's a big part of it,
yeah,
regardless. We
yeah.
all love. I mean, Kyle and I have just been geeking out on the Final Fantasy VII remake, and that's
Oh
solely
yeah.
because we've got 20 years of nostalgia built up over the original.
Yeah.
Right.
you know, and it's been fantastic. But all right, well, I know we've talked a whole bunch here about video games, but I'm sure that there's been some other stuff that has been going on. So, have you watched any good TV lately, or read any good books? What else you been into?
Yeah, mostly TV. I don't know why, for whatever reason, we don't wanna commit to watching a movie, and I love movies,
I
but it's
understand
like
that.
yeah, I don't know. And so the 2 and this one was a little bit before, but I wanna go back and rewatch it, is The Witcher.
Ooh,
I know, and then the other one we watched more recently on Prime was Good Omens,
nice.
which we had never read the book, and it was really well done. I kinda wanna read the book now because of it, but I love David Tennant, obviously, 10th Doctor, very good. And then Michael Sheen was very good as well in it, but, yeah, those are the 2 other things. The Witcher, the soundtrack was so good I bought it. Like, I listened to it at work. The music really grabbed me. That was done really well.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually didn't even know they put out the soundtrack to be able to like to buy it.
Well, first because, the coin toss a coin for your Witcher, like, that was so catchy, and I was
Hmm.
like,
Right.
"Oh, like, that's interesting," and then I looked at it, it's like a 50-track soundtrack, and I was like, "Yes, like, I want all of this." It was just I'll have it on in the background, it's really nice.
Yeah, sometimes shows like that, I think like Game of Thrones or, epic movies like Gladiator or Lord of the Rings and things like that. The soundtracks and the scores are so good for background music during work. Like,
Mhm.
so I can imagine Witcher's right there with it.
Yeah, yeah, the only other ones I've really gotten into were the MCU soundtracks. Like the Avengers theme, I just really love.
Yeah.
And so I would listen to that or like a lot of the stuff and the soundtrack for Thor Ragnarok was pretty good too because it had some like the weird like music and stuff because they're on the trash island. I can't remember the name of it or trash planet. Oh, and that's not an island.
Animal Crossing on the brain.
I know. But yeah, so those are the 2 main things.
So I watched Good Omens. I know that
Mhm,
Chris didn't have an opportunity to watch that show, but
Not yet.
I kept seeing previews for it on Prime, like interviews with John Hamm, because John Hamm is also in that show. And then eventually I was like, I need to watch it, and it kind of fits the British TV formula where it's only 6 episodes,
yep.
so it's super easy to watch. I also want to go back, and it has inspired me to read the book as well because it's so funny. It's such a serious show, but the humor that it takes is just perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the end of the world, but it's still a comedy. Like, it's just so and the relationship between the 2 of them, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know if it would be, like, if there would be animosity or if it would be friendly or what and
Yeah,
it evolved, and for each episode, I didn't know what was gonna happen or where it was going, and then there were all these other side characters that culminated together. It's just really well written slash sh shot or whatever, like, I guess it's done pretty based off of the book. I've heard from someone who's read the book that it's very, well done.
yeah,
It's always a plus.
Yes, yeah, if it's
yeah.
actually done well in interpretation, yeah.
When the book it's written by Sir Terry Pratchett and then Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman has written a ton of great things. So he wrote the Sandman for the comic people out there, like the Sandman comics. So, that's top-notch work, and I know he was a showrunner for the Prime series.
Mhm,
Yes,
yeah.
that was pretty cool. I thought my favorite cameo of the whole show was Nick Offerman
Yes,
from Parks and
yes!
Rec. Was Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec.
Mhm.
He played the US ambassador that was supposed to raise the son of the devil.
The One American, yeah.
The one American, yeah, he was the one American in the whole show. I didn't think about that. He really is the one American
That's
in the
kind of
whole show.
crazy.
Technically John Hamm, but, like, he was portrayed as an angel. So,
Yeah.
someone like 'cause you always it's weird to see Americans in British TV because then they sound weird. But yeah, it was just like Nick Offerman randomly, I was like, "Oh, look at that, okay,
Yeah.
cool."
It's hard not to see him as Ron Swanson.
Yeah, because he looked the same.
Yeah.
The mustache.
It's true.
Yep, yep.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you got it. You're kind of increasing my interest here because I remember when it first dropped, like they were pushing it kind of hard. So I definitely had seen a few of the trailers,
Mhm.
and I remember thinking like, oh, it looked like something that I would watch, but it totally went to the back of my mind. I totally kind of forgot it was out there and hadn't circled back to it. So it's good to hear you all talking about it, and you talk about John Hamm and Nick Offerman. Those are folks I really like to watch. So I might have to go and check it out finally.
Yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend it to anyone. But you said you preferred David Tennant over Michael Sheen, so am I to say you would rather spend a day with Crowley than Azrael?
Oh, yeah, probably. He's
Yeah,
more fun.
yeah.
Um, both are fun in their own ways, but, yeah, I do like David
He's
Tennant.
got that swag. and the
Yeah,
sunglasses.
yeah, the little yeah, exactly. It's a thing. It's an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Uh, although whole other discussion, not my favorite doctor, so that's for another day.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, the Doctor Who discussion, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
So you mentioned The Witcher 2, and and I have to say, I was really into The Witcher. I thought that it was done well. You mentioned the music, that was all super fitting. The set design, the plot. I mean, I thought that they hit on every note with that show. Is that a type of show that you typically do like to get into, like more of that action fantasy, or was it something that kind of came because you're also watching some Game of Thrones recently, so it fits into a similar genre? How did that come for you?
I, in general, love fantasy. That was always the type of books
Okay.
that I read, especially growing up. I was obsessed with dragons. I would draw them all the time. Most of the books that I do reread, fantasy, like maybe a little sci-fi based. And so that's I just feel like there aren't a lot of shows like that. And everyone was talking about it because it's based off a video game, obviously. I've never played the video game, I've never read the books, I knew nothing about it going into it, so it was
Okay.
kind of fun just to, like, get into this world. Love Henry Cavill, very good-looking man, uh, didn't
Got
hurt.
that jawline,
Yeah, like, shirtless Henry Cavill. Yep.
The white hair, I'll go with it, that's fine. I'm okay with a guy with long hair. I knew he's a good actor, and a lot of people my husband was excited, some of my coworkers were excited about it, and I was like, "Okay, like, I'm game." And then just watching it, like, the story was, so interesting and, like, some of it was gory and there was some sex in there, but it was just like a good balance of everything. And
Right.
it just seemed like something that most people could watch. And honestly, it just felt like what I wanted Game of Thrones to be.
I can understand that.
I like the music better. I like the people better. There aren't like trash people that I hate. Um, not everyone was dying. Like I'm and we made the mistake of thinking there were more episodes too. So when we got to the finale, it was done, and we were like, "Wait,
Oh.
oh no, we're done!" Like we thought there were like two more or something, and so it was really upsetting.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I had nothing bad to say about it. I tried to get my whole family to watch it. I don't think anyone's watched it, but but like even my parents, because I was like, "Come on, you guys," because they'll watch like almost anything. They'll watch some weird stuff, and I was like, "You guys, this is really cool. It's really good." But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, the acting was so good, the characters, although one thing I did notice watching it very quickly is that I don't know anyone's names,
Right.
uh, or
Oh.
the names of the places because I feel like they kind of assumed you knew a little bit or could remember.
Well, it's a Polish story, I believe. I think the author was Polish born, and so my understanding from the short stories, because that's how it started, was he wrote a couple different short story books, and then CD Projekt Red really made it famous by turning it into the games. What I understand is that a lot of the lore and locations and things like that in the books are based on like traditional Polish lore and Polish myths and things like that. And I know that there was a lot of folks that had very similar comments, especially if they hadn't played the games or read the books, just simply because it's like there's some like Geralt and Yennefer are very
Got those, yeah.
kind of normal and easy,
Yeah,
but then there's a whole bunch of others that I can't even think of at this moment because they're so different and complicated.
the little girl's name. I don't know her name.
Yeah. And so it just makes it a little tougher for sure. I can totally understand that. If you well, I guess if you're not into action RPGs a ton, then maybe The Witcher 3 wouldn't be up your alley. But if you did like The Witcher and the stories, then wanted to check something out, Witcher 3 is one of the best games ever made. It's like 200 hours of action RPG. They bring the entire world to life. You get to run around as Geralt with the two swords and just kick a bunch of ass. So it really puts you into it's that immersive style game where like you can go and dig into all the lore and all the NPCs will tell you stories. It's really deep.
Oh.
Side quests on side quests on side quests.
Yes, that's how it
Oh.
is exactly. Lots and lots to do in that game. So who ended up being your favorite character then? So with you being non-familiar with anything going into it,
Mhm.
just watching the what was it, 6 or 8 episodes we got?
I think it was 8. I thought it was supposed to be 10.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
who ended up being your favorite character?
I'm trying to think. Because it was hard because you would see like, the backstories of a lot of them, and then like sometimes time would jump and that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, really the only one that I was like gung ho for the whole time was Geralt.
Yeah.
Like I liked
As you
his
should be.
morals.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I feel like it's such a cop out, but I'm like, yeah, I like him because he was like, I liked his attitude. He's a little sarcastic, a little whatever. But I didn't like, and maybe this is because it's a TV show with 8 episodes, how obsessed with Yennefer he became like that. And I was like, I don't like. Okay, I mean, I guess it's a TV show / video game, so fine. But
Yeah.
it was just like, no, we're meant to be together, and I was like,
Yeah.
why do you care? You just matter.
That one is tough because of the time jumps of that show.
Yes.
Like, and you assume that there are side quests that are happening off screen over the year jumps. So, like, he's developing this relationship, but we don't get to see it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and if you're going at face value, unless they talk about something in the past, you're like, well, this seems quick.
Yeah.
Like, because it was like maybe they met in that one where she was like hypnotizing everyone in the city or whatever. And then the next time it was like, he's really, I think it was the dragon one, and he was like really into her. And I was like, okay. Like,
What happened here?
yeah, like what's going on here?
You don't even know her last name yet, man. Chill.
No. Be cool. But yeah, and his the minstrel guy, I don't know his name either. I liked him. He was a good comedic relief kind of thing.
The Bard?
The bard, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yaskir?
Was that his name?
Yaskir. I know how
He's
to
always the Bard to me.
He's always the bard. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
spell it. I know it starts with a J. It's like I think it's Yaskir if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Somebody will let me know.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a great show. I know for Kyle and I, The Witcher was great because, we had been watching Game of Thrones since, it had launched and it had ended as a series just a few months before The Witcher came out.
Oh yeah.
And so, for fans like us, The Witcher was kind of filling a void in that action fantasy genre, right, as far as television goes. But kind of to transition into GOT for Emily here, she was way too cool to buy into the early GOT hype and only started watching the series like last year?
Almost a year ago, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So she's been
Yeah.
late to the game, but she's also doing something super fun as far as this goes because she's podcasting about the experience. And you have a show called Game of Groans.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how that's been going?
So, like you said, very much too cool for school when it came to Game of Thrones. In all honesty, I think when it first came out, or maybe when it was in its second season, my husband, or my now husband, then boyfriend, had been watching it and was like, "Oh, the show's so great! It's so cool! You should really watch it." So, we were long distance at the time. I went to visit him. We watched the first episode, and as soon as they pushed a kid out of a window and it ended, I was like, "I'm done." But thank you.
Really?
Like, this show is, I was done.
See, that's usually the hook for everybody. I know.
No,
I was like,
no.
oh my God, what happened?
Well, at first, I obviously assumed the child was dead, and he's not. But it was like, at the end, like, it was kind of weird already, and it was like blue zombies, and then, incest, and then child assumed death, and I was like, no, this
That is
not
true.
I
There's a
don't
lot
care.
going on.
Yeah. Because I was like, I knew they were dragons because it was like this whole big thing. And I was like, even if the show does have dragons, I'm done. Like, I don't care. So I actively did not watch it for the entire time that it was going. All my friends were obsessed. My sister, my husband, everyone talked about it. And like, the whole world blew up about it. And I was like, I don't like that show. No, thank you. I don't care.
Fuck this bullshit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But for the last, I think it was like a year or so when it was like ramping up. I think there was like a couple of years in between like the last season or something. And I'd been listening to more podcasts. And so this is not an unfamiliar format of watching or reading something for the first time and talking about it in podcasting. And I was like, well, I could do that for Game of Thrones because I don't know anything about it. And everyone that I know has watched it. So I'll have plenty of people that want to be on my podcast.
That's true.
Yeah.
Basically what I thought, and I was like, well, if all else fails, my sister and my husband will do everyone with me, and we'll do it. So I'd been thinking about it for a while, and then it was getting towards the last season was going to come out and starting to come out, and I was like, oh, I got to get on this so that somebody else doesn't do it, first of all, and maybe someone is, I don't know. Um, but also so that, like, people are still thinking about it.
Right.
So the show ended in April, and by June, I think, was my first episode, and I had recorded like one or two, and
Okay.
and the first whole season was just like friends and people that I knew. And my goal was to at least get through the first season, see if I enjoyed doing it, see if I was okay enough with the show to keep going. And I'm already in season 2. I'm releasing less frequently, so now it's only every month. But, hopefully I'll get back to bi-weekly maybe by season 3 or something like that. But yeah, that's what I did.
It's been pretty remarkable considering how popular it was and how many people around you watched the show that it wasn't spoiled for you at all.
I mean, I know little things. I think more now that it's over, people are putting little things into pop culture more. Like it's becoming more of like oh, everyone's already seen it kind of thing. So I'm more scared now that something will randomly get spoiled, like offhandedly in like a TV show or something,
Yeah.
than I was because I knew I was going to do the podcast when the last season was coming out. So I was actively trying to like not listen to anyone talk about it or not catch anything. So I was like, I don't want to know how it ends before I even start watching it like that. And I'm pretty sure I don't know.
That's amazing because that's no small task.
I tried really hard. Yeah, that was when I was like very actively avoiding it. But otherwise, like, I was on Tumblr, I've seen things. And the biggest thing is that I know who lasts until the last season, at least the main characters, because they were promoting the heck out of it.
Yeah, you
So
can't
I
avoid
know
that.
Peter
Yeah.
Dinklage is still there. Most of the Starks are still there. I think Cersei and Jaime are still there. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. But like, and everyone else dies. Like that's,
Yeah.
and I knew dragons. I knew of characters. Like I knew Natalie Dormer was in it. I'm trying to think who else. They're like, I knew there was a person named Hodor. But like, just, you hear things. Oh, and King Joffrey, I knew about him. I knew people hated him. Didn't know why. Now I know very much. Like I'm hip to that. But
Some of those things are unescapable when a show or any IP is that popular.
right. Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't know how. And even if I saw things, I've probably forgotten them because they didn't matter.
Right.
So have your thoughts about the show changed then? So you talked about how you didn't really like it watching the pilot episode originally, but now that you're into season 2, you're having these conversations with different folks. How have your thoughts changed on the show since then?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan
Okay.
yet.
Oh wow.
I know. It's just like I'm interested in the story. I like some of the characters. Like I am actively interested in what they're doing. Some of it is just kind of like eye rolling, like, okay, like this is what we're doing. Especially Jon Snow, not a fan. Just kind of over it.
Hot take.
Oh,
Wow. Okay. Kit Harrington, no thank you.
no, not at all. But yeah, his whole story, he's just like, oh, whatever, like, I miss my dog and like, oh, I don't know. I don't like
He's very brooding. He's very brooding.
is the last episode and this episode is going to come out when I've talked about episode 4, but in the next one he's like brooding on a mountain and like everyone else is getting stuff ready and he's like oh and like he's not doing it. He is the worst.
He's always like melancholy, just like looking around. It is true.
I don't know. So yeah, so whenever he comes on screen I'm like, oh great, it's this guy. But I mean, I do like some of the people, but I'm not hooked. Like I'm not obsessed with it. I'm not, and maybe I won't be. I don't know. Like I was hoping that eventually I would turn into a fan and it'd be like, yay, Game of Thrones. But so far I'm like, the stupid theme song and like these people. I don't know.
That's interesting. It's totally fair. I mean, it's definitely not for everybody. Nothing is, right? But it's almost more commendable to me now that you're still having those feelings, but you're still proceeding with the Game of Groans adventure, essentially. So you're still walking through it. You're still having these conversations with folks. I think that's very commendable.
Yeah, I mean, part of me like needs to know what happens because I'm never gonna guess. Like it's so wild, and like I know there are gonna be so many like twists and turns and weird things that happen, and I know there's a red wedding, and I know nothing about it, and so like I gotta know, but So I guess in that case, or in that instance, like I am
Curious.
yeah, I'm curious, I want to know, but I'm just not like, "Oh, I love the show." You
Sure.
know?
Yeah,
Sure.
like jonesing to watch the next episode.
Yeah, I have waited. I think the longest I've waited between recording was probably like a month or two. So I'm not like actively like, "Oh man, like I need to watch the next one, next." It's I can wait a little while.
Well, looking at your episode, so you said you started with your close friends and your family,
Mhm.
and now that you've transitioned into season 2, you've started to host more strangers on the podcast and like interviewing them.
Yes.
Have you noticed like there's a big difference between having friends and family and talking and versus a total stranger?
For me, I notice a difference because I'm a lot less and hopefully this doesn't come off, less comfortable like to begin with just because like usually there's like sex or someone's penis or like, there's things and then I watch the episode and I'm like, I have to talk to this person now that I have had one conversation with and we're going to talk about like,
Yeah.
the penis or like and in the first season, like I was pretty chill about it and they were people that I already knew or like were, acquainted with. And so it was like, hey, we're gonna talk about this dumb thing and it's silly and whatever. But now it's like, okay, like, oh man, like, but you knew what you signed up for because you knew we were talking Game of Thrones and I gave you a random episode. So
Mhm.
sorry. Like
Yeah.
It's
uh,
true.
maybe it's more my anxiety than anything else. But everyone has turned out great and very chill and like, wanted to talk about it. So I haven't had anyone that I didn't want like that wasn't game and very fun to talk to.
Yeah, I think they kinda tear all the curtain down with that first episode. Once you get that blend of, like, murder and incest and the whole 9 yards, you just know that you're in for a ride, and it just comes with the territory once you're talking Game of Thrones, so
Exactly. Yeah. And they know that. I just always forget until I watch the episode and I'm like, oh, I have to talk about that. And like dumbly enough, like I get really awkward when usually I'm speaking to like a man and then I'm like, oh, there was sex and like, oh no, we have to talk about this. I'm so sorry. Like we have to talk about this. Oh, weird. But it's like whatever, it's a dumb show.
yeah,
You could just start everything off like it's ninth grade health class and everyone to go penis, 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 vagina, vagina, vagina. Let's just get it out of the way.
I really should do that actually.
Yeah, pretty
Great
much.
idea.
That's so funny. So, where can people find your podcast if they wanna check it out?
It is on every major podcasting platform. It's called Game of Groans. I've got a website, gameofgroanspod.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all Game of Groans Pod. If anyone ever wanted to email me about anything, it's gameofgroanspod@gmail.com.
There you go.
By the time this episode comes out, then season 2, episode 4 will be out as well. So I'm almost halfway through season 2,
Great.
plugging along. So yeah, and I've got other people lined up already. So season 2 is looking pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a ton of fun. I've enjoyed listening to it, and I mean, I'm a Game of Thrones super fan, so it's right up my alley.
And you were on it.
That is true. Yeah, I was one of those weird male guys that had to have awkward penis discussions with Emily at the beginning.
Yeah, you were season 2, episode 2. So if anyone wants to go back and listen to that one.
It's true. I actually think when we got on there, now that you mentioned that, like that was one of the first things because that episode did have some interesting moments with Theon and his sister, and
Yep,
some other
yep.
folks, and we kind of just broke the ice right away before we started recording, and we're like, let's just go ahead and make sure this is all good. But like I said, it comes with the territory with that IP. So all right. Well, let's wrap up here. And in order to do so, I wanted to kind of do something fun for us. So I did come up with a little bit of trivia. If you all are cool to play, we're going to call it Out Geek the Geeks. So it's a little bit of pressure on both of you. Kyle's got to prove that he is a true geek
Ooh,
and maybe get the most right here, right? But Emily might be able to out geek him.
okay.
Does she know more? And setting this up, neither of them are aware of what the topic is, but we've got 3 multiple choice questions and 1 bonus question, especially if we need a tiebreaker. So
Have you prepared a lightning round?
I did not
Oh,
do a lightning round.
Oh,
oh,
shucks. Okay.
Now
maybe
you're-
next time.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe next time. You're changing the rules on me.
Sorry.
So I will read the question. I will give you 3 multiple choices. We'll let each of you answer, and we will see who is the bigger geek.
Who answers first?
I'll let. I don't know. Want to flip a coin? Do I have a coin somewhere?
I want to say you can. Do you want to? We can alternate.
Yeah, we can alternate.
Okay,
That's
that
Do you want to
works.
answer first on the first one? I'll answer
Yeah.
first on the first one. Or
fine. Okay, sure.
Like home and away, home field
home and away.
advantage.
Oh, yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
You're making these. You don't even know what the topic is yet.
I don't.
No. Yeah, I could have just totally shot myself in the foot. Like I'll answer first on the first one, and Chris is gonna be like, Animal Crossing. I'm like,
All right. Well, I did keep it in the realm of what we were talking about today. I did not go Animal Crossing. So, but I went a little more broad, and I went with Nintendo.
ooh, okay.
So we have a couple of questions here that are specific to Nintendo, and we will see where we end up here. So, question 1: what year was Nintendo founded as a company? A, 1987, B, 1889, or C, 1965? Kyle, what is your answer?
I'm actually gonna say B, 1889.
All right. Emily?
Gosh. 1965?
1965. The answer was actually B.
Wow.
Nintendo is much older than most people know.
Okay.
It was founded in 1889 as a trading card company.
Oh, dang.
And they sold these things, they called them, I think it's Hanafuda cards, but they were used in like family party games, card games, gambling. And then that eventually, over the long period of time, turned into toys and technology and so on. So,
yeah, I knew that it wasn't a video game company at first, and that's why I was like, I bet it's way older than I'm thinking.
maybe I telegraphed that one too much with the one from the 1800s. I don't know. All right. Well, we're through the first one, so good job up front. Number 2 here. What was Nintendo's first video game related project? Was it A, the Magnavox Odyssey, B, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or C, the Famicom?
What were those again? Can you say that one more
Yeah,
time?
absolutely. So A, the Magnavox Odyssey, B, the Nintendo Entertainment System, so the original NES, or C, the Famicom?
I'm going to say Famicom because it sounds wild.
All right, so we got a vote for C here. Kyle, what are you thinking?
I'm gonna C, Famicom.
Famicom. You would think that.
No.
Oh,
You would think that. But actually, the real key here was the first video game related project. So the answer is actually A, the Magnavox Odyssey, where Nintendo had actually worked with Magnavox at that time, I believe in the 70s, to produce light guns for the original game Shooting Gallery. So Nintendo was a toy company, and they would make certain toys, and they had these guns, these light guns, and they were working to figure out how they could bring that into video game technology.
Hmm.
So,
and then we got Duck Hunt.
and then yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And then it evolved into things like Duck Hunt. Exactly.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's pretty cool.
So hopefully a little education with the trivia. That was the goal here too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Question 3: which Nintendo console has sold the most units? Is it A, the Nintendo 64, B, the Nintendo Switch, or C, the Nintendo Wii? I think Kyle, this is on you to answer first this time.
So either the 64, the Switch, or the Wii,
Yep.
Mhm.
which has sold the most units.
Mm.
I'm gonna say it's a toss up between two, but I'm gonna say the Wii.
Okay. Kyle says the Wii. What about you, Emily?
I was going to say that too.
Well, you can. You don't have to answer differently.
Yeah.
You're absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I want to say the Wii.
You're gonna say the Wii. You are
Yeah.
both right.
Nice.
Yay!
It actually was the Wii.
Huzzah.
The Wii sold 101 million units, which is almost the same amount that both the Switch and the NES combined sold.
Wow.
So, so number 1, like I said, the Wii at 101 million units. Number 2 was the original NES at 61 million, and then number 3 right now is the Switch at 55 million.
Wow, that's cool.
Thought that was pretty interesting.
The Wii was so much fun.
And it was, like, such a big thing because you could move, and
Yep.
the only reason I leaned towards that is because I didn't get a Switch when it came out, so I was like, "But I got a Wii when it came out," and I was like, "That's what it is."
Well, and the Wii was one of those types of products that almost like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it made it cool to play video games for like old people who weren't gamers or young people.
Yeah.
Like who didn't love doing the bowling and tennis and
Oh my
stuff,
Yeah.
you
gosh.
know?
My grandparents love the bowling. Yeah.
Right, right. So you get those like transcendent type products and it goes through the roof with success. So
Mhm.
all right. So I think Kyle's in the lead at 2 correct and Emily's got 1.
I gotta tie it.
So she could tie it, and then maybe our first trivia here, out Geek the Geeks, will end in a tie, and we'll have to come back at a later date and do a another tiebreaker,
Yeah. A lightning
a
round.
lightning round. Yeah, I know that's on me. All right, so bonus question:
Okay.
how many official Yoshi colors are there? Is it A 7, B 15, or C 11?
What defines official?
Yeah.
Official like colors of Yoshi that are used in the games. Like there are an official number of colors that are used for Yoshi in the Nintendo universe.
You said it was 7, 15, and what was the last one?
It was A7, B15, or C11.
I think 7, A.
7?
Mhm.
Oh man, I feel like there was 7. I was in my head, I'm trying to count from like Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. I'm like, when you go to Yoshi's home and they're all there, how many
Oh,
colors? But now I'm sitting here overthinking it. Like, okay, what about the baby Yoshis that just came out of the like egg? Are they like a lighter color of red or a lighter color of green? And that's like a different color. I'm 11, 11, saying 11,
11?
11.
He did get it right. That's a good guess. That's a good guess. You split the difference,
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, I
you?
was thinking because that's honestly what I
Oh,
thought. I was like, I bet that like the little baby Yoshis are a slight different than the full Yoshis, and they're counting that as a different color when really it's just like a shade or a tint.
so I guess you were on the right track, but that's not quite true. So it's not necessarily the difference between baby Yoshis and regular Yoshis, but there are just 11 standard, like official colors that they've used. And it is red, orange, green, light blue, blue, pink, yellow, purple, white, black, and brown.
Oh, I didn't know about
Yeah,
those 3. Okay.
Yeah. Some of them aren't as popular as others, of course, but
brown. Yeah, I was
Brown
gonna say
Yoshi.
brown Yoshi. Like who? Well, you know how like all the Yoshis have a different kind of superpower when you eat the egg.
yeah,
I'm wondering if like, okay, well, what do purple and brown and pink like? What are their powers?
good question.
Because I know, like, blue Yoshi, when you have a blue Yoshi and you eat an egg or a shell, you get wings and you can fly, at least in Super Mario World. So I'm like,
Probably depends on the game.
now I gotta know. Now I'm gonna Google as soon as we're done here.
Well, and actually, now that you bring it up, it could also be because like Yoshi is in Super Smash Bros. And some of those games where you can
That's
pick
I was thinking of the
a whole
colors.
slew of colors.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe some of them are just added in for that. But according to Wikipedia, there are 11 official Yoshi colors. So, so Kyle, you defended the
Defended it.
inaugural
Yeah,
Out
yeah.
Geek the Geek
Good
trivia
game, good
title
game.
here. Quality, yeah, quality work by Emily. Good try, good try.
Uh,
I wasn't sure, how big your history was with gaming and Nintendo, but I thought that that might be broad enough to make it fun and hopefully, share some stuff with the audience that maybe they'd never heard before. So
oh, yeah, yeah. I love Nintendo. So that was the best guess I could have done. So
yeah, no, it was
I
it
was
was
say there
all
was
good.
only one that I was like 100% knew I knew. Like the other ones, I'm like,
right.
okay, this is a pretty solid guess.
Yeah.
And I never knew about the Magnavox Odyssey piece. I mean, most people do think that the first Nintendo related system was the Famicom, which is short for Family Console. It was like one of the first video game consoles they ever pushed out. But apparently, yeah, they had this history with Magnavox. And actually, to take it a little bit further from what I read, Nintendo eventually became the sole, like they had the sole rights to distribute the Magnavox Odyssey in Japan. So that was what kind of got them started with video games. And then they realized there was a lot of popularity and that they, I guess, enjoyed that business or wanted to get into the business, and then they, developed it into the Famicom and the NES, and then now we're all the way down here to the Nintendo Switch. So there's a lot of history there.
Hmm.
Well, I think that's all we've got for today, but we want to say thank you big time to Emily for coming on the show. It's a big moment for us having one of our first guests, for something like this. So
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
hopefully you had fun.
yeah, I had a great time. This is exciting.
Thank you for listening to Geek KetchUp. If you enjoyed today's chapter, please remember to subscribe to Geek KetchUp on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check out Geek KetchUp on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Geek KetchUp Pod for updates on new episodes every 2 weeks. You can find links to all these accounts in the show notes below or at our website, www.geekketchuppodcast.com. Stay saucy, you nerds.